Hi.
Hi.
I surprise you.
No, I was trying to figure out how to come back from GMA, and so I'm glad this worked. This is my first time ever doing this, so hi.
Hi.
Can I have the more, this is what it
Ooh,
looks like.
yes. I've seen that cover everywhere. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. Um,
Um,
Thank you so much for having me on.
oh, of course. I love even from the beginning of your book, by the way, I felt like I was like, oh, this is so nice. She's reading me a bedtime story.
Oh,
I felt like I was the child listening to the story about Queen Esther and all the rest. And like the way you told it, I mean, it's so unique. Well, I should back up. Why don't you tell everybody what the Book of V is about?
yes. I love that you said that, though. I will say, because a friend of mine actually emailed me last week. She had started reading it, and she was like, I feel like I'm being read a story as a grown up. Like, I feel like this is
Yes.
like and to me, that's just like so gratifying to hear because it's like a dream, right? I mean, I think for many of us who love to read, and all of us who love to write, started by reading, right? And the feeling of like being read to and taking in a story in that way is such a magical and I think really safe feeling, which is something that a lot of us are sort of yearning for right now, just to be carried away.
Yes.
So the story, yes, so the story is about three very different women over three very different times. There's a contemporary mother of two in Brooklyn, New York. There is a U.S. senator's wife in 1973, Washington, D.C. And then there is a teenage Esther, as in Queen Esther of the Bible, in ancient Persia. And like, I think, I mean, I don't, can't even, 462 BCE, I think is where I said it, sort of like throwing darts. So yeah, that is the,
I don't know. I felt like 461 BC was such a better year, but I guess I'll just go with
right.
you,
I know someone's going to correct me on that, I'm sure. Out will come the ancient historians, but yeah. And so the story follows, their stories are intertwined until they eventually converge and sort of collide in the present day.
And how did you come up with this idea? Did it ever occur to you to do like three different, but like, did you want to do three different books? And you're like, how can I fit this into one amazing book?
No, I mean, I think so. There were a couple sources for it. I think first, I had always, as a kid, been fascinated by this story of this queen named Vashti, who in the book of Esther is sort of banished. At the very beginning of the book, she's banished for doing something that's sort of unclear, but it seems like her husband asked her to come and appear possibly naked in front of his friends, and she refused, and then she's banished and she's gone. And she's only sort of there as a vehicle for the story to move on, right? And Esther to enter. And I had always wondered, like, well, what happened to her and why? And it doesn't see it. She was always, as a kid, she was always talked about as being really bad. And I was like, it doesn't seem like she did anything bad. Like, what's the deal here? But I wasn't interested in, honestly, in writing a story fully set in ancient times. It's not, I wasn't particularly interested in trying to recreate what it really would have been like trying to create, like, it's just not where my brain wanted to go. And you see that a little in the sense that there's a lot of magic in the ancient Persia parts that I've created. And I think that was partly my desire to say, like, look, I am not here trying to create a replica of what it was actually like. I'm writing this story. But I was really interested in what would happen if I took that story and sort of transplanted it into a different time, one that feels more familiar to us. And in that, so my character in 1973 Washington, D.C., instead of a queen, she's a senator's wife. Her name is Vivian, also with the V, and she is banished in much the same way. And so I wanted to see, like, well, how could this play out closer to now? Um, and then I was very inspired by, I also wanted to kind of bring it even closer into the present. And I created this character named Lily, who is a second wife like Esther, and who's sort of dealing with the holiday of Purim, which is the holiday that grew out of the book of Esther. And I started thinking about, I mean, as I always do as a writer, I think very structurally, like, well, what structure might hold these stories and how will they relate to each other? And a book that was very inspiring to me was The Hours by Michael
Hmm.
Cunningham, which you've
That's so
probably
good.
read and
Yep.
probably seen the amazing movie of as well.
Yep.
Which also, takes this original book, which in that case is Mrs. Dalloway, does sort of an origin story, like how Virginia Woolf came to write that book, how it came to be, and then sort of watches these other two characters later play out that story and reckon with it. And that, so I stole that structure in a way. I mean, the book feels, I think, very, very different, and it's a real departure from The Hours, but I did I used it in a way as a kind of grounding force for how I might do this weaving, if that makes sense. That might have been a much longer answer than you were looking
No, it was a great answer, and I'm sort of kicking myself for not seeing the parallel there myself. I feel like I read The Hours. Actually, The Hours
for.
is one of the only books I read like on my phone while walking around. You know, like
Oh,
walking
wow.
around the city, like because it was for a book club I had for a long time ago.
You
Anyway,
really are amazing. I mean,
this
I
was
was
a long
thinking
time ago.
like you listened to it as you walked, but no, you read
No,
as.
no, no. I listened to it. No, no,
Okay,
no.
okay, sorry. That makes more sense. I
Sorry.
thought you were actually managed to read an entire book. I have read while walking, but not like whole books.
No, I listened to it. Sorry, I listened to it. But and so like I feel like if I don't have the spine, sometimes I don't remember the books. They don't. Anyway,
Oh my God, I'm the same way. Yeah, yeah. It's
um,
all about the visual, like, oh, that book, and you know exactly where in the book you'd open it to and on what side
yes.
of the page it would be. Yeah, yeah.
But yes, of course, now that you say it, and you've obviously
Yeah,
thought much more about it, yes, it does
yeah,
parallel, have
yeah,
some similarities.
yeah.
Um, and what was your process like? How long did it take to write? When did you start it?
Well, I started it a little bit before my last book come out, which is how I generally do this. So sometime in 2016. In a way, I mean, so I guess that's a few years, but it really, I'd say it took like 2 to 3 years of this, of solid sort of like the writing. And then of course the other book came out, so I took some time off and then I write more. I'm a big planner I mean, I write and plan and research sort of all in tandem. So I do a lot of kind of like outlining. I use note cards a lot, which I use, especially this book is so complex structurally because it's this weaving. So I used note cards up on the wall to kind of mark like the different color for each time period and how the different beats would work with each other. And then of course, or maybe not of course, there was a lot of revision that needed to happen once I had the first draft. Sort of like, where is it working? Where is it not? There are a couple big reveals through the book, and I needed to understand how they were reading to readers, right? Like it's that's a tricky thing as a writer, and that was really exciting, a really exciting part of this book because they were sort of bigger twists than I've done before, and I was so thrilled that they worked. You know, that we like I didn't know it was coming, but then it made so much sense, which is exactly what you want to hear, right? It's like, yay.
I am looking forward to continuing this conversation. We're recording a podcast soon. I can't
Yes,
remember when, but it's coming
yes,
up. So,
I'm really looking forward to it.
me too. So thanks for this little preview.
Yeah, so much for having me on. This was a
Of
lovely
course.
thing to look forward
And
to.
here, I know this isn't the right cover, but
Oh,
the
I'll
book
hold
of
mine up.
the Anna Solomon. Put it on the list. And what's the pub day again? May, hold on. I
May
have it.
5th. May
May
5th.
5th. May
Yeah.
5th. Awesome.
Yay. Thank
Okay.
you
Congratulations. Okay.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.